That's why I spent 9 years in San Antonio and liked it.
Yeah, I was, I'd done a lot of negotiations in Oklahoma, and then I'd done some Alabama, Mississippi, right on across, and on the Gulf. I went on a lot of golf places, and I was in Texas 2 or 3 times, and I loved it. I just loved it.
Oh, there's some cute little towns right down there in the Gulf. Oh man, beautiful. You can go fishing, there's all sorts of stuff to do. It's nice. Very nice. Gotta get used to the heat, but other than that.
Yeah. Only been there once. That's when we were going to Haiti. We flew into, I think, Dallas, and then Dallas and Miami. So,
Okay, so you're just on an airport.
that's it.
Terrence, do you realize
I used to.
Schlitterbahn is in New Braunfels, 35 minutes north of San Francisco. It is the largest water park on the planet. You have Six Flags, you have SeaWorld. You got more entertainment going on around San Antonio than any city in the whole state. And it's the baby sister as far as towns, but it has all this stuff on it. I'll bring the kids. Oh my goodness, there's so much to do.
San Antonio was really neat. It had that
River walk.
river, and you could ride all around through the whole city.
The whole city's one level, and then 20 feet below it
Yeah.
is the river, and they've got the whole concourse running with restaurants and
Yeah.
shops.
Oh, wow.
So you're down below the city
Yeah,
level.
below
You
the
have to
city.
come. It's the most unique place there is. They built 2 other places, one in Monterey and one somewhere else in Europe, modeled it after
She
the
must
Riverwalk of San
love
Antonio.
your
Very
spirit
unique
because
place.
she always jumps up on you.
Good to
Oh,
see
really?
everyone. Good to see everyone, Sister Rock. Good to see you.
Good to be here.
So we are on, and looks like Alan's gonna play a song. He's not freezing. On this thirsty desert ground, in a dry and barren land, I bow down. I need you now. You will call and
Singing on a full stomach doesn't work.
Beautiful.
Yes, I need you now.
God,
Giving up?
I'm giving up. We just had a big meal and.
Yeah. Sister Roy, you came too late. We still have it. You just
He eat it.
grab it afterwards.
She's mad at me.
I am not.
Well, it's good to be here this evening, and it's just kind of a Friday evening session. We just discuss a whole lot of things, and it's funny, I wrote something down the day before yesterday. I thought, you know, just maybe to use as a thought, just to take off, what they call it, a conversation starter. And what I wrote down was for 200306, which would be today, Friday night, a higher form of life. I know.
That's funny.
Last night or yesterday, I wrote and on Messenger and said, you know, anybody has any thoughts? And I try not to just throw a thought out there because I know how people are. When they see what I have on my mind, then they take off that way a lot of times. And so I try to just kind of say, hey, what's your thoughts? What you got going? What do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about it now, or you want to roll it over into the Friday evening? But I had written this down, a higher form of life. And so when people started talking, boom, we started talking about exactly what is life and what kind of form does life take. I wrote this and it said, can you bring yourself into a higher form of love? Excuse me. They can't see any faults and mistakes within this life. We should come to maturity. Let us go on into perfection. But my question was, can you bring yourself into a higher form of love? Now someone would say, love is love. You can't add to love. You can't give more love. You can't give less love. If you're talking about the life being, he is love. That's what it is. I call it he. That's what it is. Life is love. So in one sense of the word, that's very true. I can't add 1 ounce of love to anything, but I can form higher and lower forms of love. And I was thinking about that. Can we bring ourselves into a higher form of love that can't see any faults or mistakes within us, that we can't see any sin? Can we really bring ourselves to that point that you don't see any faults, mistakes, or sin laying in me, in you? And when I was writing it down, I was thinking about a higher form. There are lower forms. The Greeks understood that somewhat. They had certain terms they used for higher and lower forms of love that went all the way down. There's one below eros. I can't remember the name of it. And then it goes all the way up to agape, and it's eros, storge, phileo, something, agape, with 7 or 8 different terms. And they were forms of love that would shape and take image in a person's life. And they could form higher forms of love or of life. No different than you. The form of you in love with your father or mother or parents at 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old. That's a form of love. once you get some age on you and you begin to understand the maturity of love, that you have formed into a much higher form of love. During those little toddler years, the more that you got from them, the more that they took care of you, the more of everything. It was a type of love, and then it went on and formed more and more and more all the time. So you can move into higher forms of love. No doubt about that. As a teenager, then as you were a teenager, loving your siblings and loving your friends and loving your parents, and then you moved into loving a husband, and you move into loving your own children, and you're just moving into higher forms of love, higher forms of life. You're imaging and taking on more identity all the time with more depths of love in it. But can we, that was my question. It wasn't a question of can we move through these forms of love or not. We do, without even trying. We do. These forms of life, different lives, different things. But can we move through to a higher form of love that sees no faults, no mistakes, no sin in this life?
I don't see why not.
We do it every day.
Yeah.
Every time we take a negative and put it behind us, to me, that's, you're moving, things grow stronger, you know?
And you don't think there's any emotion
Well, let's say if I did something wrong.
that could take that away? Yeah, there, okay.
If I did something wrong, like yesterday we were at Sister Norad's and I snuck out and I paid for the chicken that she gave me the card to pay for, and I didn't use her card. I used my card. Come back and told her that, and I'm sure she was upset with me. So in a sense, in her eyes, I did something wrong, but she didn't love me any less for it. It did create an emotion and a feeling in her, but immediately it was, I forgive you before you even did it. In my eyes, you really never did it. So.
Well, to me, I've never classified love as an emotion. That
No.
never set with me.
Okay.
I always
No.
thought,
It's not.
emotions have a wide range of things that you can attach the word love to. Affection, and there's so many of them.
Yeah.
But love itself isn't an emotion to me. It's not.
What I'm asking though is there an emotion that can, even though you say, I don't see any fault in anybody, I don't see any sin in anybody, I don't see anything that anybody, all I can see is perfection until one of them steals your credit card. Instead of you using your credit card, what would have happened if you would have stole her credit card out of her purse and went and bought yourself some chicken and come back?
She'd have hit me in the head with a baseball bat.
What would have been is there an emotion that can take away or remove love?
Because we know that we are eternal beings and everything is eternal, I can't see of any emotion that would make me hate someone strong enough that I don't want to see them in eternity. I mean, no matter what they do on this side, I just can't, I don't see an emotion strong enough. Maybe I just haven't experienced something that strong. So it's easy for me to say I can't see that. But
Well, to me, it's like a matter of accepting whether or not to have that in my life or not. They may do something that is so adverse to what I do. So listen, I can't be a part of that. But if they want to go over there and do that, I have no issue with them doing it. And whatever results is, it's on them. I don't have a problem with that. It's not like I love them any less, or now I have mixed emotions. I love them and I hate them. I just choose whether or not to fellowship, to include that into my life. And there's some people that on certain things, I like being with them. And in other things, when they start behaving a certain way, I'm done. Doesn't mean I have anything against them, but when they go into that mode, I don't want to be in that mode, so I leave. I detach myself from it. So I don't think there's anything that make me take the way I feel. To me, it adds to it. Suddenly I feel positive, and now they've done something that made me feel negative, and now I got to sort that out and figure out where I want to go with it. It's not really taking anything away. It's just adding on and adding on, and every time it adds on, that's why people get overwhelmed over it. They got so many emotions come along stacked on, they don't have to decipher them and sort through them and organize them right, you know?
When Patty and I were younger, there was this person, we had just married, I think, I can't remember the year, around 1981 or 2, right near 83 at the most. And we'd been married a few years, and this man came out and said, you know, they've been, you know, traveling around in their ministry, sleeping with everybody they can sleep with. Said, you know, Don's wife slept 30, 40 men a night. Don has got many women he runs with, and didn't only say that in that kind of a manner, but said he had a vision from the Lord, and it was thus saith the Lord. And I'm sure there was only one person on the earth that knew it wasn't thus saith the Lord, and that's me. I knew it was a lie, a straight up lie, me and my wife. So there was 2 that knew it. Now, I think sometimes that man was in such a delusion or an illusion that he really believed it, you know. But me and my wife, we knew better. So then years and years and years later, some years later, everybody had made their decisions. People had left, people had gotten away from us, people had put us out of churches, people had, and some people had said, we don't care what he says, we know you're good people and we know you wouldn't do that. So we had them going both ways, and that's the reason I'm asking this, is because some of the people were family that just straight up believed it on us. A family that knew us forever. And so, and then, you know, when it happened, it was just a shocker to us at such a young age, and bang, that took place. Well, years later, the man, his son was in a hospital ready to die, and his wife called me and said, would you come and pray for my son? I know what's happened between you and my husband, but you've always had a gift of prayer, that there was healing there. And they asked me to come, so I went. And I got down there. It was in Louisville. Went in, we prayed for the child, and almost immediately he came out of a coma and things, and so I'm there, and it's years later, and all of the damage, the horrid damage, and I mean really bad stuff, had happened. And he comes to me, the man who told it all, and he said, Brother Parnell, I need to talk to you. And I said, sure. And he said, I want you to forgive me for what I did. He said, I told some things on you, said some things that I shouldn't have said. And he said, can you forgive me? And I'm standing there, and all I'm thinking about is, thus saith the Lord. You said it was thus saith the Lord, and now you're standing here asking me to be forgiven for thus saith the Lord. And I could just feel it, Sister Rod. I was so angry inside me. But I looked at the man and I said, I forgive you. It was one of the hardest things in my life I ever done. And I could see the relief in him. And I said, now, I have forgiven you. But you didn't just tell me. You went all over the United States and other countries telling people this. And
I would ask that you make that right, straighten it out. I mean, so people know that you've asked forgiveness and these things about me and my wife are just not true. And he started talking without making any ado about that, you know, about what we were going to do next and how we were going to travel here and we was going to go to this country and we was going to go. And I'm standing there just waiting. And I said, all of that we'll talk about after you tell me that you're going to make this right, so people don't think that I've done such a thing. And he said, that will never happen. And I said, well, I have forgiven you. I have forgiven you. And he said, well, we can work together then. And I said, I forgave you, but I can't trust you. If you're not willing to make it right, I can't trust you, and I cannot work with you. I love you. You go your way. I will always love you. This will not be against you here, there, or anywhere. But you and I can't work together under these conditions. Go. And it never came back again. And many times he's gone on, he's passed on. I believe he has a much better understanding of things now. I don't believe he's out of existence. I believe he has a much better understanding than he had then. But I often wondered, did I do the right thing? I had love, a great love for him. He was one of the leaders in William Branham's message. I had a great, great love for him that did I let it slip away, or did I make the right move? And I'll always wonder that in my heart. And that's why I ask this question. Can you bring yourself into a higher form of love that can't see any faults, any mistakes, or any sin? If I could have brought myself to that point, I think I would have treated that man differently.
My thinking, because you do love him and always had a love for him, you treated him out of love. You could have strangled him, but you treated him out of love. You forgave him out of love. Now, let's say if someone you never knew or never had a relationship with at all, didn't know them, out of the blue has spread that rumor, and then come to you out of the blue, first time you ever saw him, you say, I want to apologize to you. You'd have forgiven him, but you wouldn't have had the love that you have for this guy, because you didn't know him. You didn't have a relationship with him.
That's true.
Your relationship caused you to love and forgive him. You can still hate him for it, but you love him.
Well, to me, the key word here is trust. There's people that I love, but because of what they've done to me, I don't trust them anymore. I don't love them any less. I'm not any less positive to them. But I won't get into a situation, the old adage, first time, shame on them, second time, shame on me. I will not put the trust is gone. And if I don't see a willingness, like if this guy would have had a willingness to take those steps to earn trust back, that's different.
That's different, yes.
But if he says, no, we're not going to do that, then there's no reason for me to give him trust. It doesn't mean I'll hold back the positive things I feel for a person, but I will not interact with them on a level because I know the trust isn't there. It's just not there. It doesn't change what I feel. It changes what I will do with them.
Yeah. And this is the reason I brought this up, because I promise you, there are literal hundreds of thousands of people sitting out here in the message, in the world, and in our movement, who feel this way about somebody or something that happened. And yes, you can come to a point to where you don't see any sin. You don't see any of those things in the person's life. You don't see any iniquity in there. You don't see any mistakes. You don't see any faults. But listen, love, for instance, just saying this, a man and a woman, and they are really in love. That woman or that man can do some of the most horrid things to one another that you would ever imagine. And it won't take that love away.
Right.
It won't remove that love. Committing things against one another, doing things against one another, on and on and on. And it won't remove that love. Love covers a multitude of so many things. And you can come to a point to where you have that love in your heart and eyes, to where so-and-so did this to me, and I can look back there now, 30 years later, 35, 40 years later, and I can say, wow, by revelation, how much I learned on how to act. I will tell you now that what happened back here 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, in the other church, had I not already had that happen to me once before, where my very best of loved ones turned on me, even if I made a mistake, and I stood up and you heard me say I made my mistake, you heard what I said I did, and that's what I did. But it went south, meaning it went down. My love, I knew to be still, I knew to be quiet. I was directed by the angel of the Lord. Let them do what they're going to do. You've got another message. You're moving on with it. Keep moving forward, and let them go. And in letting them go, just meaning we have to move on to a higher form of love. Our form, we moved on to a higher form than loving a past message, than loving holiness, than loving a church and loving a group of people. We moved beyond all that. That was my question, is have you done that out there? We talk about this love. We talk about what it's done for us. And we hold these things in our hearts about other people. And I'm not saying they're not there. I said you come to the point to where you don't see the iniquity. You don't see the fault. You don't see the sin. You don't see the whatever it might be about that person. It might very well be there. Yeah. It might very well be there in them. But have you come to a love, a higher form of love, that you can't see that in them?
You don't see that as a negative thing when you look at
That's
it.
right.
You don't see any of the negativity. You just see it as part of their nature, and that's acceptable.
That's right. It's their nature. You accept it. You love them. If you know, and these are just examples. If you know, my wife has a big scar across her face, every time I look at her, if I say to myself, "Ugh, that scar's ugly," which she doesn't, but I'm just using this as an example. After a while, the scar gets to meaning more to you than the wife.
Mm-hmm.
With a love, you can look past that and say, you know,
Mm-hmm.
she's beautiful. Sure, that's there right now, but one day it won't be. And I'm not going to let that thing bother me.
So does the love progress or stagnate? Does it become stagnant and stay there where it is, or does it progress and move on
Yes.
and evolve into more and more
Yeah.
greater
Well,
love?
where everybody's at right now. I mean, I can turn around and use another point. Just because you went and voted for Bernie, I can still love you. You see what I'm saying? There's a lot
He
of...
just told the world that
What?
Donald voted for Bernie.
I know he's not that stupid. He's smarter than that. But my point is, what he's saying, there's a certain situation he's applying it to, but when you look at it on the whole, the world's at odds with each other right now. We've never been so divided to where everyone's
Right.
saying, you say one word and they're sensitive and they're angry and they hate you, and I mean, wow, that's really intense, and the whole world is stirred up. So with that atmosphere, this is a very appropriate question to make people think. How are you going to deal with that?
Yeah.
Not just in your own family, not in your own home. How are you going to go out in the world and deal with the same
Deal
thing?
with the same thing. And how are you going to deal with your husband who wrongs you, or your wife, or your son who steals from you, or your granddaughter who does this to you or that to you, and you're saying, but these are my loved ones, and how are you going to deal with those things? We have to come to that higher form of love. If we don't, those things are just black marks, death marks that keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper scars into your flesh.
Yeah. To me, they're like cancer cells. You don't do something about them, they'll grow.
So let's go into perfection. I went into the book of Proverbs. I wrote this. Solomon wrote about the ant. You know, the little ant, not your aunt or your uncle, but the ant on the ground. Solomon wrote about the ant in Proverbs. This has been on my mind with all the discussion. We've had a long week and something discussion about the changeover from shadow governments into reality, the changeover from like hierarchies, leveling up the playing field, removing the offices, removing rules, regulations, just getting rid of all those things. We've talked about it. And we've talked about removing the hierarchy to where there's not someone that's superior and someone that's inferior, but we are the same. When I say the same, sure, we've got differences, sure, we've got all kinds of things, but when it comes to importance, when it comes to the movement of the body of the Lord, we are I don't even want to say equal. We are just all important, all of us, and we remove that hierarchy out of here's one thing higher and here's somebody lower, and here's somebody and here's followers and down the line. And I use this out of the book of Proverbs to say this is the age we've come into. Proverbs 6:1 said, "Go to the ant, you sluggard." A sluggard, to me, is one who sees something they should move on to, move into, follow the flow, but a sluggard steps back for whatever reason. Some of us, we call them lazy in the different languages, but a sluggard is just one who is a procrastinator. They just wait until the very last minute to do anything. But anyway, he says, go to the ant. Take a look at the ant, the little ant. You bunch of sluggards that don't want to move out of your shadow government. Consider her ways and be wise. Listen to him. Talking about the ant, which has no guide, no overseer, or no ruler. Provides her meat in the summer and gathers her food in the harvest. How long will you sleep, O sluggard? How long do you think? How long will you continue on with, we need a government, we need a church. I believe we need fellowship, but I don't need for that to be, quote, a church. We need rules and regulations. We need organization. We need, and sluggards have all these, because you know why they have all this set up? Because it's easy. We've gone through decade after decade after century after millennia doing it. And it's got real easy. It's got real easy to take names out of the Bible and, oh, he's a deacon and she's a song leader and he's a this and he's the pastor and there's the prophet, and on and on. It's easy to do all that. But we moved out of that system. Brother Branham said there was 7 messengers, and at the end of the age, that 7th messenger said when he comes, everything changes. It's all changed. How long will you sleep? How long will you want to stay in that type of government? People do it all the time. What's some of the things that you see that people want to do now, continue to do? Just asking you a theoretical question. If you have something you want to say, feel free to. But theoretically, what's some of the things you see? you say, man, that's just old church age. That's not going to fit today. If we continue to do that, we're going to stay in the same old trap. What's some of the things you see?
On the scale, religion. Sorry, but that whole thing to me is like Santa Claus. It's done. I'm past it all. It has no practical application anymore. For me, now I know a lot of people it does, and if I say it, they're going to get all tore up and send me to hell and put me through purgatory on the way there and everything else, but I'm sorry, I'm not there. I'm done with it. I don't know. In what I'm doing, I don't need it. And if somebody else, and I don't need to come along and try to change anybody and pull it out of it. If they see that I've changed and they want to come that way, that's totally up to them. If they need to stay right there their whole life, that's fine too. I don't have a problem with that. So to me, religion, and of course politics too, it's the other thing, but you can't do away with that right now. Hopefully another 3,000 years it'll be over with, but I see a lot of that going on.
Any other things that, just off the thinking that, I've thought a lot about it. I thought, there's tithes, there's offerings, there's
Communion, foot washing.
You could just keep going on and on with days. You keep these certain days, Easter and Christmas and this and that and the other. And I don't have a problem with any of you doing it, but those things are things that kind of hold you. You keep certain days, like February 28th is the cloud day, and you just on and on and on. We hold things in our mind, like May 6, 1948 or 1946, angel of the Lord in the cave, and boom, Israel becomes a nation, and we all say, and that generation shall not pass till all things be fulfilled. And Lord have mercy, we're almost 100 years past that. That generation's passed twice or maybe 3 times. But yet we'll still scream it and quote it and get everybody ready for the end time. There's another one, biggie. The whole end time deal. And the whole concept of Israel, the church age teaching of Israel, and how Israel's the elite and Israel's the chosen of God, and Israel's going to raise up and all the nations in the millennium are going to... We have so much church age teaching that rolled around through a hybrid of the actual apostles and their creeds and the Greeks and the Roman Catholic Church, and it's just poured into us. Calendars, times, everything under the sun, all the time. And I see it and I think, when are we going to come to the time in our hearts when there's no more... Don Parnell is not looking out here to some guide somewhere. Not looking out here to some overseer. I see where people will say, a Tory didn't say it. I want to wait and hear him say it. I think, let me choke you just a little bit. Because it throws us 50 years backwards. There's only one prophet in the land, and that's a Tory Aloyansa. You just shut down about 75% of the people in the world. They don't even want to hear you. When you come across with things like that, whereas if you just level the playing field, and you just went out there with what you have in you, no overseer, no guide, no ruler, and just go out there and be yourself. And there's nothing wrong with talking about what you see, but you don't have to say, I see it because a Tory sees it, or because William Branham sees it, or because... Just go out there and enjoy it and say, this is what I see. And sure, as time goes on, If somebody gets real interested, you know what they'll do? They say, where are you getting all this from? And you can say, well, you know, there's a lot of people on the internet. There's Eckhart Tolle. There's this one and that one. There's Rupert Spira. There's Abraham Hicks. There's all these people. There's a guy named William Branham. For his age, really got a lot from him. And there's this guy, a Tory, and there's Joe Gomez, and get it to where it's a holistic being, and it's not an overseer and a ruler and a guide that everybody has to have in their mind. These ants didn't have a king or a queen. Did you know that we're not in the church ages anymore? And kings and queens and priests and all those things was church age. He made us kings and priests in the book of Revelations. That was for the church ages. The bride herself has made herself ready. That was for the church ages. The church ages are finished. And we are in this Proverbs 6:1. No guide, no overseer, no ruler. Gathering our meat in the summer. Gathering our food for the harvest. Coming out of our sleep. Leaving what we were supposed to leave behind and not be sluggards. When will you arise out of your sleep, O sluggard? Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, and a little folding of the hands to sleep. You come most of the way out. We just want to keep this. Moses, could we just... Egypt had good garlic, and Egypt had this, and Egypt had that. Could we just have this? And when will you arise out of your sleep? A little bit of this and a little bit of that. And so will your poverty come as one that travels. Solomon was saying, I watch these vagabonds, these travelers, and they never amount to a thing. They jump from hill to valley, from here to there, going everywhere. So will your poverty come as one that travels, and your want as an unarmed man. A naughty person, a wicked man, walks with his eyes froward. You know what that means? He's looking for somebody he can get into. Somebody's pocket, somebody's family, he's looking for some way that he can dig in and get something for himself and better himself. And he does it with a froward mouth, wicked eyes, winking eyes, walking all the time, traveling here and there. A wicked man walks with a froward mouth. He winks with his eyes. He speaks with his feet. Boom. As soon as he gets what he wants, away he goes. He teaches with his fingers, not with his heart. You do this and you do that. I'm telling you, with the fingers. Frowardness is in his heart. He devises mischief continually. He sows discord. Therefore his calamity will come suddenly. Suddenly he will be broken without remedy. So Solomon is talking here about another image forming. A complete new image for the earth. Consider the ant. No kings, no queens, colony. They're all working together to get everything done just right. Everybody's the same. Everybody moves together the same. Everybody loves one another. They work and they work and they work. And he says in the middle of all that, occasionally this other image is going to appear, and that is a sluggard. A person who says, but wasn't the church ages better? Wasn't it easier when we just went to church twice a week? Wasn't it easier? Shouldn't we have these rules? I mean, didn't they have these rules for hundreds of years, and now you're saying that all that book is done and those rules are not ours anymore? Shouldn't we, there's always that sluggard that wants to say, just a little bit of sleep, just a little bit of that. Couldn't we just use some of it? And Solomon is saying, your mischief, your naughtiness, your Everything about you is going to come upon you suddenly. Why? Because the whole world and all the flow of it is going to generally, over a period of decades or generations, it's going to flow in that direction. And this sluggard will have missed the blessings and the coming of the Lord right in front of him, going on all the time. I wrote down, notice, in the ant colony, there is no king or queen. It is a community or a colony. And a sluggard, a lazy person, is not appropriate in the community. Just meaning they're not willing to step up into a discovery mode. They're lazy. They just want to stay back here. Wasn't it nice, back here when we had this and when we had that? They don't want to discover. They don't want to step out of their comfort zones. They don't want to do any of those things. They become lazy in their mind, and they're not appropriate in the community. An ant is not lazy, is continually moving forward, working, discovering, making things better. We all have within us the guide. This is a different move. We all have within us the guide, the overseer, and the principles needed. We've risen out of our sleep. Those who try to move among the people with a froward mouth, asking for a living, winks with the eye, gathers all he can into his pocket, speaks with his feet, boom, he's gone. And away he goes until he shows up again seeking more with that froward mouth. We do it spiritually, we do it naturally, we do it all those ways. And what I'm saying is, this is the time that his calamity comes. Why is this the time of the calamity? Why is it? Because the old system has been exposed, and a new birth has come to a new system. It's moving among us. It's opening up more and more, and the sluggard is exposed. I don't want to go there. I don't want nothing to do with love divine. I don't want anything to do. I believe in this. I believe if I don't see this in a person, they ain't got the Holy Ghost. You just hear those sluggards. You hear that lazy mind that doesn't want to end redemption. That lazy mind that doesn't want to step away from an intercessor. That lazy mind that just wants a mediator between them and the Spirit so they can put all their faults on a mediator somewhere, whoever it might be. Lazy minds, sluggards. And in so doing, their calamity is brought upon them because a new way has been opened, and that exposes the old way. It exposes what it is. The calamity comes, and suddenly these sluggards are broken. If they love this word, they will change.
Yeah.
I will tell you this, I've seen some men in the last 2 weeks, if they're going to do what they say they're going to do, they have changed. Time will tell, and I won't try to take that from them. If it gets taken away from them, they will take it away from themselves by not doing and moving in the flow of the Spirit when it comes to making the changes. If they love being a sluggard, then they've exposed themselves and they'll move on. Consider the ant. I look at the movements into Love Divine that have taken place, the steps, all the way back from the opening of the seals. Think about all the steps we've taken, discoveries, this colony, this community, this Love Divine, how it has opened itself up so much over a period of 50, 55 years. From 1960, when William Branham went into the cloud in May of 60 and came back, from that point till now, how long has that been? 40, 50, 60 years. Think about all the changes that you have seen and gone through and moved you into more and more discovery. Some of you on there that will listen, some of you have made a lot of great discoveries. But you want to carry that Egyptian food, that you want to bring that garlic along. You want to make sure that the things that benefited you in Egypt you get to keep, and you only throw away what didn't benefit you. Well, none of it fits. None of it fits. It's a new day. How do you see this opening? How do you feel about handing things over and doing away? How do you feel about coming to a level playing field? How do you feel about that thing that's inside you can now talk to you and lead and guide you through all the discoveries that you used to think, I'll wait on this man to do? How do you feel about that?
Excited, nervous, at the same time. The whole concept of a level playing field is, I've dreamed of that since I was a kid. I've always seen hierarchies as obstacles, whether it be family or just out in society. But when everybody can be accepted for what they do and how they do it, and now you're moving into a peaceful existence. It's the only way you're going to get it. It's me. And so when I see it, I'm nervous about it, because now the part about knowing that is you're relying upon yourself. You're the one that transforms yourself. No one else does. You do it to yourself.
Right.
There's that. So I'm nervous about that, but at the same time, excited. I'm excited about what I see, and I'm excited about what I can't see, or I'm nervous about what I can't see, the unknowns.
So moving into a higher form of love is extremely exciting, but a lot of anxiousness and uncertainty about it too.
It's stimulating in a positive and negative way combined.
Yeah.
But it's stimulating. Yeah. To me, it's very stimulating.
Couple of comments here. Alan Stuckless, amen. It's good to be totally free, no regulations, just free. Ben Derbyfu, I love that inside overseer working in harmony with all.
Yes. And that's really, if you want to change up, instead of calling, and don't get afraid of this, there have been men like Jim Jones that said they had this, they moved his people off and 900 and some of them died. I ain't got no Kool-Aid, and I don't want 900 and some of you around me. So don't worry about that. And, I'm just, don't get all worried and upset about that. That was an age. That was when things were starting to move. We'd gotten beyond William Branham's message. We'd come over into a transition day. And there were many men that set up all kinds of things, campgrounds and this and that and the other. Some of them dissipated and went away. Some of them killed themselves. Some of them are still going on, all in the name of the message. I just want to say this is a move through the internet. I could count on my hands and toes the amount of people in my area that believe this. I'm not out here trying to find somebody and make a big thing out of it. This is a move that's out across the world in the frequencies in the internet. I'm not trying to build a, quote, home church. I'm not trying to make it into a big movement. Just these things that we sit around and discuss all the time.
Yeah.
And we see and we believe, and we just want to take these discoveries and bring them out here and lay them in your hands, so your overseer and your guide and the one who sets up the principles inside you, the Spirit in you, so it can take them, take a look at it and say, this is great. That so-and-so ain't telling me how many books I need to read. They're not telling me how many songs I need to start out with. They're not telling me that I can only believe in them. They're not telling me any of these things. They're just putting out great discoveries that I can either accept or pay no attention to them at all, and I'm fine. I'm fine, and I'm good, and I feel good, and I'm not waiting on the next shoe to fall. There's no other shoe to fall. This is just what it is. The Spirit moving in a flow, and with us, He shows us these things. Now, many people say, well, they're crying out, you got to believe this Tori Alianza. He's coming with so many things. He's coming with so many discoveries. He's opening so many things up. Some people will go through life, listen to me, millions and millions of people will go through life without ever hearing anything that we have taught or said, and they are just fine.
Yeah.
They are just fine.
That's right.
And you don't have to run out here thinking that all this has to happen. Enjoy your part of this earth and this universe and this day and these discoveries. Enjoy your part, and know that the ripple in the pond will continue on and on and on, and more and more and more people, if it's in this decade or the next one or the next century or the next millennium, people will pick it up and keep going with it, and it will keep moving, because this is not a denomination. This is life. Life means a lot.
Right. Yeah.
You can't do away with life. And that's what this is. It's life. So do you want to say anything else about how it makes you feel? What?
I remember when I left the system I was in, and caught up with you later. You were living out on Meadowlands, Graceland.
Yes.
And we went for a walk, and we just talked. And you told me where you were at and what you were doing and what you were thinking. And my only reaction to you was, thank you for the freedom. Because what you were describing was total freedom from the religious system. I've never looked back. I've always felt free. Even we were down at the church, I felt free. I felt I can come if I wanted to, if I didn't want to. If I want to participate, I can participate. If I didn't want to participate, and I have to participate. I had total freedom to do whatever my heart desired to do. And that has never gone away, it's just increased. Every day I feel more and more free to express, to say what I think, and to enjoy life. That's just me, I'm crazy.
All those years, I felt like I had to go to church. Deep down inside, I didn't want to because it was a have to.
Mhm.
And when I finally reached the point where I knew I didn't have to go anymore, I'm free, now I want to go. I want to go and have fellowship with them. I want to come here and sit and talk to you. I don't want to go to church. I don't want to go to that formal, organized, false thing. I don't want to go to that. What I want to go and sit with people and talk with them, how I feel, how they feel, what they see, how things are going on around them, how life is treating them, how they're treating life. Sit down and have a relationship.
Yeah.
Now that I want to go to.
That's what I wanted to see. My wife knows many years. I've always said, this is not about me. This is not about me. All I want to do is to help people to where they can enjoy their life and pull the cloak off of all this religion and church and governments and hierarchies, and I got to live up to this man's thoughts and this lady's ways and this, and got to be sure and be there and do the thing, communion and foot wash, and got to do that at least once a year if I want to be clean and holy, and I want to, it's just all those things kept going on and on. And Brother Branham said in The Rising of the Sun, and this woke me up just a little bit. You can go there and read it for yourself. But he said, I am superstitious of you, talking to all of us back then. I am superstitious of you, the way that you keep certain days. And everybody thought he meant Christmas, Easter, the way you keep certain. And he said, like days you were saved on, when you weren't saved on any day. And I thought, Whoa. Brother Branham's going a whole different way with this. This is a rising of the sun into our spiritual land. It has nothing to do. I don't care how many Easters you keep. Have 10 a year if you want them. I don't care. But what about the day you were saved on? Were you? What about the place that the Holy Spirit met you the first time? What about I used to be a devil and it was all cast out of me? What are we doing with all that?
Right.
We're doing away with all those things and coming to a new day, and that's kind of where I'm headed toward a little bit on this coming Sunday. And we can talk a little more here, but is just moving out of all of that old, for lack of a better word, Tommy rock, Brother Branham used to call it, just a bunch of Tommy
Good
rock.
Irish word, yeah.
Yeah.
I like what Mark Twain said. He said the two most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you discover why. Those two things. Those are the days worth keeping in your mind.
Yes.
Other than that, every day's a new discovery.
That's right. There's another thing Mark Twain said I always liked. He said, if you don't read the newspaper, you are uninformed. And if you do read the newspaper, you are misinformed. And I thought that's just about the way it is with everything.
Yeah, you say that to Facebook now, and all Twitter and all these other things.
But Brother Louis Villamore, I wrote this down. He said, Colossians 1:26 and 28, hid from the ages and from generations, but now is made manifest to us. Make known the riches of our glory, Christ in you. Yes, we bear real love to one another now. Warning every man, teaching, leading every man in all wisdom, that we should present every man perfect in Christ. See what Paul said to the Colossians? Present every man perfect in Christ. My question was, can we come to a form of love that looks beyond faults, sins, all these problems? And Paul said we should be able to do that. We should be able to present every man perfect in Christ. I should be able to look at Obama and say he was perfect in what he'd done. I should be able to look at Daniel and say he's perfect in what he'd done. I should be able to look at Hitler and say he's perfect in what he'd done. We should be able to present or understand and know that if it hadn't have been for the great slaughterings of the Irish people from England who moved into Ireland and just took it over, my grandparents would have never moved out of Ireland and come to the United States and have me here in the United States, part Irish and part Native American, and that would have never happened without all that slaughtering. So can I present the English warheads as perfect men for going in and driving my parents to here so that we could set up and have this gospel all across the United States and all across the world, and we could be doing what we're doing today? Can I look at it in such a perfect way that I don't look at anyone as imperfect, mistakes, faults, and everything else? But we present every man in all wisdom, that we should present every man perfect in Christ. Paul did it. That's what he's saying. He goes on, says Hebrews 6:1 and 2, leaving all the principles of the doctrines of Christ. Look at that. Can you do it? Leaving all the principles of the doctrines of Christ. Leaving the principles of the doctrine of Christ, the old ways of teachings about repentance from the dead, works, faith toward God, faith towards something outside of your own body. Having faith towards God, listen to what he said, I like this. Having faith towards God creates slavery. Amen. Having faith towards God and the baptism and the laying on of hands and the resurrection of the dead and the eternal judgment, judging everybody. Having faith towards something outside of you sets it in a superior position to where everything is a little bit less, everything is a little bit filthy, everything is a little bit not good enough. Can we go beyond that? He says, this is Brother Louis, we are now in the new day, which love breaks down all the barriers built in our mind. And everything here is no mistakes, seeing that everything here is following according to every purpose. No mistakes. Are we willing to go that far? There's so much more that we talked about in that I haven't even got to. What time is it?
9:05.
Okay. There's a different approach to the people today. And it's not about one man and his style. This is about the government being upon the shoulders of the people and not under one man to control the people. This is not about economic necessities to fulfill the law or our houses with materials, but to fill up ourselves with love, compassion, kindness, an objective purpose, and bring meaning in our approach to others. That was Pastor Joe. It's a totally different approach. It's the colony approach. It's the community approach. It's the approach that says we're not going to have any mayors. We're not going to have any magistrates. We're not going to have any senators. We're not going to have any governors. We're not going to have any overseers. We're not going to have any guides, rulers, or rules. It's all within us to be who we are and to interact and fellowship and love one another. It's in us. And we've now moved into a place, if you want to call it that, let's not even call it, we've moved into a condition where that we can have all this within us, right here and right now. And we might not know where our next meal is coming from, but we can have this in us. Living in us, walking in us, talking in us, showing it, and actually fall into the lineup of what Jesus said. Consider the sparrows, consider the lilies, consider these things. They don't know where their next meal's coming from. They don't neither toil nor spin, but in all of their glory, they're more beautiful and are more taken care of than Solomon in all of his beauty. We've entered into that. Anything on there?
Yeah, couple of comments. Brother Edwin Roman. We rejoice and fulfills the kingdom of this world become the kingdom of our Lord. It sit in our human hearts. Christ takes over all kingdoms ruled by men. So it's no longer ruled by men, but by Christ, the us. Christ, the us. Sometimes men have a hard time accepting it.
Amen.
Brother Felix Oe, shalom to all. I never knew I would come to a place we have come to today in all my life. So I am so humble and thankful that I can make good use of my life freely in love and enjoy everyone and what they are, putting no conditions on no man.
Yes. I want to say something about Brother Felix. You know, he came to the Philippines, and I wanted to go to an island. Brother Alvin Tan was his brother that had an assembly there and a gathering of people. And I had told him a year before, he asked me to come to his place, and I said I will, but I'm led of the Holy Spirit definitely to do some things on this trip. Can I come to yours next time? Because I'm in the middle of making some real changes, and I've got to get these down. And he said, sure. So the next time I went, Brother Marion came, and I didn't know Brother Marion was coming, Brother Felix. And he came, and then he traveled with us to this place. I forget the name of the little place. Maybe they know it on there, Maria or something. I forget, but it was a little small place, island. And we got on the boats and we took off there. And so we get there, large group of people, large group of people. It was way too many to put in a building, so we had it out in an open area. And they set mics up and things, and I started talking about how that this was their move, this was their day, and there should be people among them raising up and moving them on and taking care of them and opening up new days. And so, you know, Brother Wesley was there. Of course, I wanted him to speak some. Brother Felix was there, and of course, Brother Enrique and Brother Joe and Brother Kit. So we were all just kind of talking, and I noticed it that the people wanted me to say more. They you know, I traveled all that way, and they just really wanted me to say more. And Brother Felix said, he speaks up, Brother Marion, because I'm trying to kind of give it away and say, this is your authority, this is who you are, this is your move now, this is. And he says, he speaks up, I've never seen anybody like this man in all my life. If I had half this many people trying to follow me, he said, I'd be all over them. He said, and here he's trying to give it all away. He's just trying to give it all. He don't want nothing to do with being your prophet or being anything. And so he said, but I have come to understand this. That's why they love you so much, Brother Parnell. Because you don't try to take over their life. You don't try to lead them. You don't try to make your way absolute. He said, I see all those things. And I remember, I've always remembered that. Like, he was like, look at all these people. They're wanting you, and you acting like it don't mean a thing to you. And it does mean a thing to me. But this is not the age for that. This is an age where it should flow among the people freely. This is an age where all four rivers flowing out of the Garden of Eden are supplying and nourishing the earth. And it's not a one-man ministry. It's not even a ministry. It's a flow of the Spirit that's happening. It's a movement in the earth. But I always remember that about Marion. And Brother Edwin, you are right. Some men can't accept this. And I do want to say this. It is still humanity leading this thing. It's not like there's a Christ out here somewhere. And humanity's got to give up all of their leadership so Christ can come. And that's not it. That's not it. If you got that in your mind, you missed me again. We are humanity. We are the leadership. We are the government. We are the new day. We are the flow of the Spirit. And it is all of us in the flow of this Spirit. It's not like, Moses, we need quail from heaven. Moses, we need water from the rock. Moses. No, it's this way. Jesus makes a statement. You say to this mountain, be moved. It's not some man somewhere. You say to this mountain, be moved. Moses said, but now I say unto you. And it was a furtherance. And we have moved further than all these one-man galactic ministries of, Star Wars and everything else. It's just, You know, I watched all those Star Wars films, and you know, one thing I realized about Star Wars is it was just two families fighting over the universe. Yeah, that's all it was. And here it's the same thing. You got a couple of attributes of God and Satan, and we got them fighting over the whole universe, when really all they are is a couple of processes, and there's only one spirit. So there's a different approach that's going on. He went on to say this: Spirit in us is the people moving to change the world with love. The Spirit in us is the people moving to change the world with love. So it's not like a spirit is out there and we need to give up all of our ego and give up all of our ungodliness and all of our partials and all, and give all this up and bow to the Great Spirit. And no, we are the Great Spirit, and we are changing ourselves. We're changing who we are by the experiences, by the emotion, and by the feeling of who we are, which is the Spirit. The Spirit has emotion. The Spirit has feeling. The Spirit is us. The pulpit doesn't hold the movement of the Spirit, because awakenings happen when the playing field is leveled and we understand that leadership is in all of us. When I take away the leadership out of the pulpit, so to speak, or hierarchy, and I put the leadership in the people, and we begin to move as one, and you may very well have leaders among you that kind of make the first move. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, the next time it may be this guy over here. And the next time it may be, and this leader here that made a move this time should be humble enough to listen to the move here when it moves a little further. And these two men should be humble enough to listen to what this lady over here says if it's a move in the Spirit and it's taking us further. Let's stop worrying about who's in the lead taking us further, and let's just move. When you forget about who gets the credit, you can do a lot of things. It's a great movement when you can forget about the credit. What do geese do? When you see those Canadian geese and you see them traveling across you say, wow, look, there goes, that's the lead geese. And you hear him honking and honking and honking. Well, he's just the lead the lead goose when you see him. Because they change.
Yes.
And they move out, and the one on the back left moves out and comes up front, and the one on the back right moves over to the left, and the one in the front comes to the back. And they keep switching back and forth and back and forth. And every one of them, by the time they get where they're going, have been a leader and a follower. And every one of them have experienced the winds and everything else, and the breaking of the winds, and they've experienced the headwinds. They've experienced everything, and they are just as much, the very least of them is just as much a leader as the very greatest of them. And that's what we're doing now. That's what we're doing now, is moving in that manner. So and I'll tell you this, if one gets wounded, that doesn't stop their journey. And that goose, when it goes down, the one that was in the back, that just moved back there from leading, he's tired too, or she is. So they drop off and they go right down with them. And if you see one that's hurt, you know what you're going to see? No matter where you go, you can see it anywhere. You can see it out here. Watch it. There'll be one with it. And it'll stay right with it while it's getting its rest and doing everything. And then they'll catch up with the group. Because they never leave one another alone. They have plans for everything to get where they're going. They're not a bunch of froward-mouthed, living, taking, pocketing everything off one another. They're loving one another. They're teaching one another. They're learning every needed position and everything all the time. We'll get into some of that. But it's what's going on now. We are moving in a great movement with a literal compounded group of units and leaders all across the world. It's a great move.
You know, one of the things I value most about this is This movement we're in, it's not something that you're taught. It's something you wake up to. Everything else in life you're taught. Politics, religion. Anywhere you go, you have to be taught. You're indoctrinated and you follow it. I haven't been taught any of this. I hear something and it wakes me up. And I see it as me. And I move into it. And then something else is said. And more of me wakes up. And I move. And I'm gradually just waking up. Moving in each moment. Waking up in each moment. Discovering who I am. And I'm not taught any of it. There's no teaching involved. It's me waking up to who I am.
Yes.
And who I want to be. To me, that's the greatest thing I found in this. That's the greatest freedom of it to me.
Amen.
Is knowing none of it is taught. It's me waking up to who I am.
Brother Felix Longo Cole Jr.
Mm-hmm.
And forgive me if I mispronunciate your last names or your names.
He's a great brother in the Philippines.
Shalom to all. I am very happy to feel the true feeling of liberation, of understanding our movement. For so long, we have always been blinded by our own self-righteousness in sharing this gospel that drives people away from us. Now I am going to connect to all people of all walks of life. Every person that I talk to, no matter how happy or grumpy they are, I am able to connect to them and touch them and bring them into my tribe. Truly, this movement has truthfully taught me, and I am really able to love the unlovable, love less.
Amen. I like that. I am really able to love the unlovable. Those who before we said too much wrong, too many problems, 6 husbands, whatever it might be. Jesus sat right down at the well and dug in until he found that little place inside that lady where the Spirit was dwelling in the midst. Picked it up just like that.
Yeah.
The theophany world is our shadow government. We are not here to interpret that world. Wow. I love this. We are not here to interpret that world. We're not here to make that world happen here. The theophany is innocent, without experience. It is us in the flesh who possess the interpretation of things that are going on here and now. When a person tries to push a system, a ministry, or a teaching upon another, that is a shadow government. All world governments are shadows. The reality is the people. True interpretation lies in the heart of humanity. So we can see that all of our shadow governments and all the things that we are having trouble with or trying to set up, and they just don't work. You know, we try and set something up and we go a year or two and we feel so condemned over it, or we go 6 months, or maybe you just go an hour. If you're like me and it don't work, I throw it away. You know, and just the other day, my Jeep, you know, I turned it on and the tow light came on, the ABS light came on, the change oil soon light, everything came on and just stayed on all at once. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, oh, time to throw this away, I guess. So I called a mechanic that I know, and he said, don't worry, a trash light somewhere has got it all stuck. And just, you bring it in to me and I'll get it back to normal. But for me, I was like, okay, time to throw this away. Go do whatever I got to do. So, but the theophany world is a world, it's a world of innocence. And it thinks it's going to set something up here. And it's not. we are the ones with the interpretation on how to live here. It's not the word or a theophany or something that nevertheless, like I told the guy, he said, I haven't been in the resurrection yet. I haven't been in the rapture yet. I'm still waiting on the resurrection. And I said, really? You're going to talk to me about the resurrection and the rapture when you haven't experienced either one of them? There's no sense you talking to me about that. So it's the same way with me. This theophany is going to tell me how to set something up in this earth. I have a theophany. It is a shadow government, and it's a wonderful spirit. It's all of those things, but it came here to gain knowledge and learn from the elements and from all these things that we're doing in the flesh. Only the lazy dictates. I like that. We're talking about the sluggard. Only the lazy dictates, but the altruist is creative in being the blessing in the world that the world needs. Humanity is a creative entity, thriving with a progressing energy. We are humanity, creative in our fellowship and evolution. We are the people working with the world, doing something for the world. Amen. Yeah. That's what we are. That's what we're doing. We're here, and we are creating something that we're going to move on and on and on into, and bringing it into its perfection as we go along. So we have these. Now, I'm not going to go through all this. We still got a lot to go, and we'll pick up on some of it Sunday. But do we see where we're at? Moving to a higher form of life doesn't mean that there's more than one life. It's just like the mind. You remember we said we had a theophany mind, and we didn't get birthed into a spoken word mind, and then get birthed into a carnal mind, and then get birthed into a spiritual mind. It's the same mind, and it is progressing by experience to where it moves over into a spiritual mind, because it can take the innocence, it can take the spoken word, and it can take the fallen man, if you want to call it. It can kind of take all three of them and set up the greatest aspect, the greatest experience for itself. So that's what this is all about now. It's not about, okay, we were living in one life, we're going to go to another life. We lived in the life of the devil, and we was the children of the devil, and we was the children of the world, and then we got, boom, some fire to burn us all up, and boom, we come into existence. And now, after getting all burnt up and being crispy and coals and everything else, we come out pure as gold, and we're this brand new life. No, the same guy back here that was called the devil is the same guy over here called Jesus, or Don, or Christ, and he's just come through a process. And by recognizing that, we're able to recognize we move into higher forms of life. And if you are listen to me, if you are in conflict in your heart with what reaction or action or response you should have with something, I will say this: move with your intuition, move with your gut, and if it's off, you've got the guide, the overseer, the leader inside you that it'll bring you back around. Just move to the best of your concepts within you, your feeling, your emotion, your experiences, the patterns that you've seen, that you've come through, and others have come through, and make your decision. Don't sit there and think, I can't love this person, or I hate this person, or I can't stand the position I'm in any longer. Don't sit there and feel that conflict. Begin to move to a solution. And by picking your intuition, picking your gut, picking your inner emotion, and saying, this inner emotion has been right for me 999 times out of 1,000. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and go with it. And if I happen to make a move that's a little off, if you want to call it that, that's okay. I've got everything in me that will bring me right back around to the flow of things. And you do that and stop feeling so contentious among yourself, inside yourself. Like, am I right? Am I good enough? Am I making the right decisions? Did I say this right to this person? For years and years and years, my experience up front with that man, it made me question and question and question. And just since I come to this message, I came to the understanding that I did everything the way I was supposed to. It doesn't have anything to do with right or wrong. It has everything to do with your response. And then the flow of life will bring everything to its order. And that man, he's dropped his flesh. He's went on and he is living wherever he's living. And he and I am sure, have a much, much better relationship now than we have ever had. Because I've come to this love. I've come to this understanding that Romans 8:28 and 29, all things work together for the good of them that love the Lord Jesus and are called according to his purpose. I believe that with all my heart.
Brother Louis Villamar, we are all in the flesh world, and this is our kingdom to adapt and adjust. Believe that all flesh sees salvation. It is our eyes, mind, and heart. Establishing this understanding, and we did it in love, we are the new world.
Yes. We are the new world. And one thing I'd like to say, and it's easy to do, I will do it again. After tonight, I'll catch myself doing it again. This is more than a kingdom now. Because kingdoms are for kings and priests and queens. And we are none of those anymore. We hold that attribute in us. Like Brother Edwin said, this is a kingdom. Like Brother Louis said, this is a new kingdom, a new world. Like I've said. But in my mind, I'm trying to change my thinking to where it's not so much a kingdom as it is like the ant world. No kings, no queens. We just all move about with everything in us that we need to gather our food, to gather our harvest, to take care of one another, to do all the things that we need, and enjoy our fellowship one with another, and build and build and build. And in one sense of the word, you can call it a kingdom. We've all called it that. But in my mind, I'm trying to adjust the focus a touch and say, it's a community, it's a colony, and we're moving away from having these hierarchies that belong in a kingdom, kings and priests and magistrates and governments and deacons and pastors and apostles and prophets and teachers and just on and on and on. We're trying to move it to where those gifts, everyone may still be among us, but we've learned how to maturely use those gifts to where it is in the body. And Louis may produce one of them this week and bring things to us that's unbelievable, and Edwin may do it the next week, and Felix may do it the next one, and Don may do it the next one. And all I'm saying is, let's be privy to that. Let's understand that can happen now. It can happen now. That
It is happening.
the Spirit is moving in such a manner.
I've never seen it happen like this.
I haven't either.
I've never seen it. Not in this form. I've seen people who 10, 15 years ago would have never even thought to speak what was in their heart. And when they turn around and write it, everyone can go, that's me. I relate to that. I see that.
Yes.
And at that moment, they're leading that thought. And then it switches. I've never seen this happen. It's just random. It's just moving from one to another.
Yes.
you know,
It is.
it's real interesting. It's hard to define.
Yeah.
Because it flows. It's so fluid in its movement. It's really hard to define it. We grasp it, words trying to say what really is this? Well, it's us and it's moving forward. But other than that, what do we call it?
Yeah.
You know, community sounds good, but I've never seen it happen like this before anywhere.
And Solomon seen the greatest form among that world was a form without kings and queens, a form without rulers and guides, but they all had it in them to do the needed things for one another.
And that creates harmony. When you can get that all that movement going on in that level playing field, now you're working toward harmony.
Yes.
Right there.
We must transcend the processes and recognize the person of Christ. I in you and you in me. Transcend these processes. Kingdoms are processes. They come and go. Gods and devils and they're all processes. They come and they go. Church ages and Old Testaments and New Testaments, and they're all processes. They come and they go. Let's transcend all these processes now. We've come this far. And let's recognize the person, the one who is flowing in among all these processes and bringing them to their fruition. And that person of Christ is I in you and you in me. It's us. We are doing it. It's not a cloud up there. It's a cloud in the midst. It's us. It's life projecting itself into the elements. We'll get into that more. I know it's probably getting a little bit.
It is 9:35.
Any other questions or comments? Or the more I look at it, the more I see that life is, we use the word eternal. We use the word Zoe, it's a Greek word. We use the word eternal. Zoe is a character. Eternal is a framework. And time is a little measurement. And we use those all the time, but really life is none of those things. Life, it's just, it goes on, and it never had a beginning, it never had an end, it never left anything, it never came from anywhere, it never went anywhere. It just always is. Life always is. Life is in the midst of us. It projects itself into these elements and identifies itself as dawn. It projects itself into the elements of the earth. And this year, this table that we got this mic sitting on, it has potential life. Now these elements, they're packing life. The life and identity of Don Parnell. This table has potential life. It may come a decade from now, a year from now, or 50 years from now. This table will break down. It will go back into the ground where it came from. It'll break up into the elements, and maybe some man will form himself a garden, and these elements will go into some of those tomatoes and corn. That man will eat it. He'll drop his semen into his wife. His wife will have a baby, and this table will be walking around out there. Because this table has potential life. Life is in the midst of everything. Now, I'm not saying this table is alive. I'm not saying that. This mic is not alive. But I'm saying it has all the elemental potential to have life. And this mic may be sitting here, which used to be part of the body of Moses. You don't know that. Maybe. So, potential life and life. Life is in the midst, it's in our presence, it is us. It'll always be, it always has been, it always will be, and it will pick up whatever element it wants to and identify itself in it. Daniel, Don, Joe, Louis, Alan, on and on and on. It just keeps identifying itself. Elizabeth and Patty and Wilma, and it's the same life, just identifying itself, picking up the elements from wherever it needs to, at whatever year, whatever place, through whatever man or woman, and it just keeps moving on. But it's all life. Life is the light of me. It's what lights all this up.
Never alone, like a tear in the ocean, on a star on a clear winter's night. Never alone, like a dream in a child, or a childish dream in you. When you can't seem to find your way home, when life gets too hard to face it on your own, I'll stand as a light through your darkest unknown. I'll walk with you, never alone, never alone. When you can't seem to find your way home, when life gets too hard to face it on your own, I'll stand as a light through your darkest unknown. I'll walk with you, never alone, never alone, never alone.
Amen. Well, we will join hands and where the chairs on that rug, they just ain't cooperative, are they?
No, they're not.
So we join hands with all of you out there, all of you on the broadcast. We love you. Thank you for being with us tonight. Hope we've helped you in some way. I do want to say, I'm not sure when the next scheduled Friday night will be. We will just keep putting up the night that we will be here. Brother Allen goes to work, back to the things he has to do during the summer, which takes up the Friday night at work. And so just be in prayer for us, and we'll keep meeting back, but we just got to kind of pick times now. So all of you, we love you. All of this that's within us, the authority, the love, the peace, the joy, let it happen, let it be in all of us. In the authority of Jesus Christ, we believe these things for healing, for finances, for everything. Amen.
Still love me?
Yes, you are too.
Yes. All His way. All His way.
I know you did. You breathing hard. You worked hard.
We
I did. Lay down and got rested.
love and
Lay
say
down rested.
so.
And it does make
I
you
sat
feel
down,
better.
I got sleep.
Yeah, I do that sometimes too.
I'd rather
There
be out doing
is a
something.
I
place
think we
of
can't grace all this
perfect
anymore. We're
rest
too
behind the inner veil. So